Hi everyone, welcome in. It's everyone that's we have our campus partner joining us now. Hi Devon, how are you?
Hi, how are you doing, Olivia?
I'm great. So, just so that we can kind of introduce everyone that's joining, we are going to be doing a final kind of Q&A about the application as it is due tomorrow night, which is really exciting. So for anyone that has any last minute questions or kind of, general comments for the admissions officer and I as a student, this is your chance to do so. So my name is Olivia Jones, pronouns she, her, hers, and I am a fourth year communication studies student from the Bay Area, and I am a member of PolyReps, which are the official university ambassadors and tour guides of Cal Poly, and then I also work for the Cal Poly admissions, and I do these talks every week so that you prospective students can get a good look about different features and aspects of Cal Poly. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. So, hi, everyone. My name is Javon Edwards, pronouns she, her, hers. I'm an admissions officer here at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I focus in the recruitment department of the admissions office. So, my primary area is Los Angeles County high schools and community colleges for recruitment. But I'm really excited to join you all today, pre the application closing tomorrow. So, yeah, ask your questions away, and I'm excited to share some information with you all.
Yeah, so do you want to give kind of a general overview of the application or, what that kind of looks like?
Yeah, most definitely. So, Cal Poly, if you all do not know already, is a part of the California State University system, which means we are a CSU, so state school. And our application is through Cal State Apply. So, our application opened up for Cal Poly October 1st and is going to close tomorrow, November 30th. So, everyone had about 2 months to complete that application. And it is one application, and you fill it out all four quadrants of that application, and then you decide which campuses you like to apply to. That also includes Cal Poly. So definitely 23 options or 23 different California State universities that you have to choose from there. I will definitely mention for the application. So I mentioned that there was 4 different quadrants in there. The one that probably takes the longest to complete, or definitely the most tedious, is the academic history piece of that application. But once you're completed with that, everything else is pretty much a breeze. And so you hit submit to select which institutions you'd like to apply to. It is a $70 application fee per institution. That is, unless you qualify for an application fee waiver. But after that, the journey's set. You're basically on your road to coming to Cal Poly once you get that application submitted.
Yeah, that's great. It definitely, I mean, if some of you are watching this and you haven't started the application, I know you might be a bit stressed right now. And obviously, it's ideal to, get ahead of things. But if you haven't done it yet, then that's totally fine. It's still 100% worth it to apply because you wouldn't want to regret not applying after the fact. So I say that it's definitely worth it to just focus your time on this and make sure that you get it done before the deadline tomorrow night.
Yeah, most definitely getting it done as soon as possible. Although the application closes at 11:59 tomorrow p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we want to make sure that you're submitting it as soon as possible because, things happen. There's technical glitches. Wi-Fi might go out. Your power breaker might go out. Something might happen. So we just want to get those applications in as soon as possible. So really tonight would be the night to do that. And yeah, that way you can ensure that your application has indeed been submitted to us so you can be considered for admission.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if everyone's submitting theirs at the same time, you wouldn't
Yeah.
want overload of applications right at the end.
Yeah, most definitely. And those things happen, overload of applications. It's a data system. I don't foresee any issues happening, but things do happen. So you just want to make sure that you're able to submit, that payment goes through, and everything is okay on your end to ensure the application has been received by us. And you will receive a confirmation email once your application has been submitted. So it's nice to double check your inboxes, your junk or spam inboxes, to confirm that it has indeed been submitted and received by us.
Yes, definitely recommend that. Do you have any kind of recommendations for what people should expect comparing Cal Poly to other CSU campuses?
Yeah, great question, Olivia. So one of the pieces in terms of the application time frame is that Cal Poly is doing priority applications, with our deadline being November 30th, as mentioned. Some other CSUs or California State Universities may have an extended deadline of December 15th. So if you are applying to Cal Poly, you do want to ensure that you are submitting it by tomorrow, 11:59 Pacific Standard Time PM, not by that December 15th deadline. Again, if you're thinking about applying to Cal Poly, maybe some other schools, just make sure you submit at least to Cal Poly by tomorrow, as the deadline varies from institution to institution. So definitely something important to know.
That's very important, yeah, especially, and then that way, if you are applying to other campuses, you would have had the bulk of that application done, and so you won't have to worry about it for those other deadlines.
Exactly.
And then also, what about the aspect of kind of the work experience or the extracurricular section? Do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so I actually was advising a couple students today on their application, but this one particular student asked a very common question, and it was about extracurricular activities and work experience. And they were working in quadrant 3, which is supporting information, and that quadrant goes into work experience, extracurricular activities, and also the educational opportunity program, also EOP. And with that, they were asking, is there anywhere for me to go into detail about my experiences in work, or detail about my experiences in those extracurricular activities? I'm only seeing these 4 questions. And the answer is unfortunately no. So as a state school, we need to be completely objective with our admission process, all right? So we're only looking at quantifiable information. Yes or no questions. Okay, so whether or not you were involved in any extracurriculars, yes or no. And how many hours did you dedicate to that experience? Very similarly to work experience, did you have any work experience that was 25% or more related to your major of choice? Yes or no? And if so, how many hours did you dedicate to that? And that's going to be it. It's not hidden anywhere in the application. You won't unfortunately be able to provide letters of recommendation, your resume. That's not information that we are asking for, nor will we consider, although we know you definitely have most likely been involved in a lot of things, and we're really want to hear about that information. It's just that we can't consider it for admission.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And honestly, it's kind of a relief, compared to your other applications sometimes. All of the essays and letters of recommendation sometimes that people apply for. So, the CSU and Cal Poly system, as much as they would love to know about that, they're going to be looking at more sort of numbers-based information.
Yeah, most definitely. I think it's a benefit for some, not so much for some others who, wanting to express those experiences in writing, whether that be an essay or those experiences on your resume. It's definitely valuable. But, we're getting so many applications in, and if I, as an admissions officer, or if one of my colleagues as an admissions officer is reading those essays and we can maybe relate to that a little bit more, well, that's where that subjectivity comes into play. And so that's just not something, we can consider. We're trying to be as fair as possible with this admission selection.
Yeah, that's great. So we have a few questions if you want to kind of go through those. So this first one says, is it true Cal Poly SLO and Cal Poly Pomona are no longer sister colleges?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, that is Pretty much true. We are polytechnic state universities, but we're not affiliated by any means. And I think when you come into the terms of like sister universities or sister colleges, you start to think, well, if I'm admitted to one, am I also admitted to the other? Do I have an option? Is the coursework easily transferable? The answer to all of that is simply no. When you're applying to Cal Poly or applying to Cal Poly Pomona, you want to be sure you're selecting the correct institution, the one that you really want to, attend, as we're located in two separate locations in California. We have completely different majors, right? Some similar, some not so similar, but you want to just make sure that when you're applying, you do select Cal Poly San Luis Obispo to apply to ensure that your application is considered for our admission process. So that's a really great question, really common question that we get. But essentially, if you're applying to just one of the Cal Polys, that doesn't give you consideration or admission consideration to both Cal Polys.
I think the only kind of similarity would be if you were interested in kind of that polytechnic aspect of your education.
Yeah.
So that's something that you could research, and then you can kind of weigh up the options of comparing those schools, knowing that they both do share that similar aspect. But other than that, yeah, I've never had any interaction with Cal Poly Pomona.
Yeah, I mean, our Mustangs, our mascots are very similar in that we are the Mustangs, they are the Broncos, right? That's one piece. We both have a learn by doing philosophy and motto, as you mentioned, Olivia, with, hands-on active learning component to all of our curriculum. But yeah, other than that, we are two separate institutions. Great question, though.
Yeah. So the next question is, what is the recommended major for someone wanting to become a teacher?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to recommend that anyone that is thinking, unsure of what major that they want to apply for, or unsure of what career route they would like to get into, that they're going to go to our website, calpoly.edu/undergraduate-education, and check out the Explore Our Majors tool. So that tool is really great because you can put in what your career interest is or your educational interests, and you can type that into the search engine tool, and what will populate are majors that align with that career interest or educational interest. So for example, the question Emily asked, you want to become a teacher. You can specify that. Let's say you want to be a K through 12 teacher, for example. What would populate as a common major for that career outcome would be liberal studies. Okay, so that's really a direct alignment to teacher pathways. Okay, so taking liberal studies as a major, but also there's child development as a possibility. It'll even populate in that search engine English as a major. So it really depends on what you want to focus on, maybe what you actually want to teach when you become a teacher. Because if you want to teach biology in, let's say, the high school, maybe biology major would be something that would align well with an outcome as a biology teacher in K through 12. But I would say that the primary major I would recommend is liberal studies.
Yeah, I would agree with that. One of my roommates wants to be an elementary school teacher, and she's pursuing liberal studies right now. But another one of my friends also wants to be a teacher, and she's an English major. So definitely some different paths that you can take. But yeah, like Javon said, use those resources and, reach out to people maybe that you find that have pursued similar things to you, and kind of look at the classes as well that you'd be taking and see what most aligns with what you're interested in.
Exactly.
Next one is, how competitive is this university nationwide?
That's a great question. So Cal Poly is highly competitive. I'm just looking at the state of California and the state universities. So we are getting a lot of applications in, and we are an impacted university. So, breaking down the term impaction and what that actually means, first piece. So Cal Poly is impacted in all majors, but impaction essentially means that we have a lot of qualified applicants that are meeting the minimum eligibility requirements, but we don't have enough space to admit everyone that's meeting those minimums. So we do recommend that students are completing higher semesters of A through G coursework. If you're out of state, essentially that is your core subject areas such as history, English, social sciences. So more semesters of those core subject areas, and having a highly competitive GPA. And so each application cycle, the competitiveness differs based on the applicant pool. So essentially you as applicants are making the applicant pool more competitive every single year because you're doing more semesters of A through G coursework. You're coming in with those high 4.0 or higher GPAs. And so going kind of back to the question in terms of our competitiveness at Cal Poly as a state university, we are probably one of the highest competitiveness. I can't speak to nationwide. Unfortunately, I just don't have that data in my head, and I don't know that information, but that's a really great question.
Yeah, I think it also depends major to major. Not that some majors are better than others, but some will be probably more well known coming from Cal Poly than others. So that's why, for example, a lot of out-of-state students are architecture majors, for example, because Cal Poly is going to be listed on those top lists on the kind of national rankings for those specific majors. But in general, yeah, it is a competitive school. So
yeah, and you know, in terms of like ranking and our programs and just as a school and a university as a whole, so we have been ranked best in the West public master's level university 29 consecutive years in a row, and that's by US News World and Report. And so that being that we offer bachelor programs and master's programs, but that's pretty a great achievement that we're really proud about. Like being the best in the West public master's level university is something, you know, that really speaks to us as a university. You know, maybe not so much the competitiveness, but I think more so us being a prestigious university that students really really enjoy attending, but also that return on investment after graduation is key to that ranking as well that we get.
right, I agree. Someone asked, is Cal Poly giving tours to prospective students right now? Yes, we are. I'm giving tours right now. Super exciting. We are giving them in person, so you can sign up for a tour online. If you just visit calpoly.edu, and they'll have a list of either a self-guided tour that you can do if you're not comfortable in big groups, or you can get a guided tour from a campus tour guide. So pretty exciting, good to get a good feel of campus. We're not offering them over winter break, but definitely something to look at in the next couple of weeks or in the new year. Next question. Is it beneficial to send in standardized test scores even though Cal Poly is test blind?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you know, thank you for asking this. So we are indeed test blind, and that is for all of my fall 2022 applicants. So essentially being test free, meaning we're not considering those standardized test scores SAT, ACT for admission at all. So even if you're self-reporting those scores in the application, that's fine, that's fantastic, but we're not going to consider it for admission at all. Now, after you have been admitted, we may request those official test scores to assist with course placement at the university level. So what I mean by that is we can use those SAT and ACT scores to assist you with that course placement by not having to take remedial courses in English or mathematics. So those SAT, ACT standardized test scores definitely can benefit you to some capacity after you've been admitted, but for admission purposes, there's no benefit at all.
Yeah, so basically don't worry about it right now.
Exactly.
If you took it and if you felt like you did well on it.
Yeah, and I still encourage everyone to still complete those standardized tests if you have the opportunity to do so. You know, the reason why Cal Poly has gone test-free, as many universities have, and for the entire CSU, is because we know that many students didn't have the opportunity to take those tests because those test centers were closed due to the pandemic. And so we're trying to make this process as equitable as possible by removing the test scores from our criteria. So fall 2023 applicants, if anyone's out there that's thinking about applying to fall 2023, 2024, stay tuned. We have not received guidance as to whether or not those test scores will be considered for admission, but I'm still going to encourage everyone to still take it. Again, it could benefit you when you come to the university for course placement. Yeah.
Someone asked, what is the appeal process if denied admission into Cal Poly, or is there one?
Yeah, there is one, and great question. So I'll start with this. Everyone is going to know of their admission decision of whether or not they've been admitted to Cal Poly by April 1st. Okay, so we're going to provide decisions by that time frame. And we do not have early decision, which is a common question that we get asked. So we do not provide decisions. So all across the board, first-time freshman applicants and transfer applicants will know by April 1st. After you've received a decision, and if that decision was unfavorable, you can submit an appeal, okay? And that appeal process can be found on our website. So you can simply Google search Cal Poly Appeals, and you will want to be able to kind of review what was submitted in the application. And the appeals committee is going to be looking for anything that is new and compelling. So anything that essentially, you know, what do I mean by new and compelling? Anything that is outside of the application, but it's still something that we would consider for admission, okay? So you will use your best judgment to provide essentially your justification as to why you feel like you should be admitted to Cal Poly. And at that point, we will take in, you know, any, essays or any type of writing, any supporting information that you would like to provide to state your case. And that information will go to our appeals committee, and they will review that and make a final determination of your admission to Cal Poly. So yes, there is an appeals process. You do need to submit your appeal 15 days, okay, 15 days or less from when you received your initial decision, okay? So you, of course, want to, you know, ensure you're looking at your Cal Poly portal, your emails for your decision. After that, again, if you are not admitted to Cal Poly, you can go through the appeals process, but all of that information is documented on our website.
Awesome, thank you, great answer. Another question, what is considered too many W's on a transcript for transfer applicants?
That's a great question. There's not really such a thing as too many W's. So if you've withdrawn from a class, there we go. That is completely fine for our transfer applicants. You essentially don't necessarily need to state that unless it was a withdrawal while failing. Okay, so that's essentially a WF. But there's no such thing as too many W's. Withdrawing from your courses, you actually do not need to report that information, okay? So that's a question that is like a win on all sides. You don't have to report your W's. Your withdrawn classes, unless they were a WF, so withdrawal while failing.
Right. Could you please break down the holistic evaluation? How does whomever review transcripts?
Yeah, definitely. So holistic evaluation, essentially, I'm going to detail all of the factors that we're looking at for admission, and this is going to include how we are evaluating your admission holistically. So we are going to be looking at your major. So the first piece is you're only competing, okay, with folks that are applying to the same major as you. Okay. The second piece, which is not necessarily consideration, but I'll just throw that out there. You're also only competing against other freshman students applying to that same major, and other transfer students are in a separate pool applying to a same major. So if a civil engineering transfer student is applying, they're only going to be competing with other civil engineering transfer students. So that's one factor. The second piece is going to be your coursework. Okay, whether that be high school coursework for my first-time freshman applicants or college-level coursework specifically for my transfer applicants. So coursework is one. And we're also going to be looking at GPA, so your grade point average. And then lastly, it's extracurricular activities and work experience, okay? With those particular pieces, extracurricular activities is gonna ask you, did you have any leadership experience, okay, involved in your extracurricular activity? Were you a captain of a team? Were you a treasurer of a club? Anything like that. And then work experience is gonna ask you, was your major related to was your, work experience 25% or more related to your major of choice? So we're only looking at 1/4 related to what you're applying to for a major. And so with all of those factors, that's how we are reviewing your application holistically.
Great.
So I'm going to actually just touch on the last piece of that question is it's not a whomever is looking at the application. And I say that because there's not going to be one specific admissions officer, such as myself, looking at 5,000 applications, okay? Because you're entering in all of your coursework in the application, we are going to be basing your admission off of your self-reported information. So we are holding you at the honor system that everything that you entered in the application is indeed correct. And once you submit it, at that point, we are going to base our admission decision. So essentially, not a person is reviewing it, but it's based on all of that data that you're entering in the application, and that's how we make our decision.
Yeah, and that's why you're going to want to make sure that you really kind of review and check through everything that you're submitting.
Exactly, that everything is indeed correct.
Someone commented just Eagle Scout. I'm assuming that's wondering if you should that application. And I say yes, right? That shows leadership and actually.
Yeah, most definitely. So Eagle Scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, you name it, that would definitely be considered an extracurricular activity. But something to note, which I did not mention the last couple seconds ago, was that we are looking at the last 36 months. Okay. So the last 3 years for each experience. So yes, if you were part of Eagle Scouts within the last 36 months, then go ahead and count that towards your experiences for extracurricular activities. Yeah.
So someone asked, are people entered by major? Like, does graphic communications, etc., have a higher admissions rate than CS? So the second part, maybe I don't know the details, but yes. So like Javon said, you are admitted by your specific major. So for example, I'm communications, and so I was only competing against other people that applied for communications. So that doesn't mean that you should, apply for graphic communications in hopes of switching over to computer science because you think it's an easier major to get into. But you'll definitely want to, really think about what major you want to apply to, because that is the specific major that you would be admitted into against everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. And I think, we always state that you all should be applying to the major that you're most passionate about. And I say that, and we say that because although you can change your majors when you come to Cal Poly, it's not a guarantee, right? And so the worst thing that could potentially happen is that you're applying to a major that you just thought would be easy to get into or less impacted, when indeed it's not. But right, that's your thought process. And now you're admitted, which is fantastic, but now you might be stuck in that major, right? And so that's the worst case scenario. And so when you come to Cal Poly, in terms of the change of major process, which I'll speak on a little bit, you do need to complete at least 1/4 in the major in which you were admitted into before you begin that change of major process with your academic department. And that process and that approval is not going to be guaranteed, okay? It just depends on the space that they can bring in another student. So be careful, just apply to the major in which you really want to study for the next 4 or 5 years at Cal Poly, because we just don't want you to get stuck in any situation you don't want to be in.
Yeah. I mean, definitely some majors will be a little bit more impacted and more competitive because they have a higher kind of amount of people applying. But again, like you said, it's still worth it to apply to the one that you would genuinely be interested in taking classes in.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely.
Someone asked, could you speak to how impacted computer science major is and whether that is likely to persist for 2023 applicants? I don't know if you have any knowledge about that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's most likely going to exist for 2023 applicants. Our entire campus, and that includes all majors, are indeed impacted. So that goes for computer science as well. It's going to be highly competitive. I believe we had about 17,000, close to 18,000 applicants to the College of Engineering. And that was the most applicants for all of our colleges that we have at Cal Poly. And with that, we were only unfortunately able to select roughly around 5,000. Okay. And the spaces that we actually had was smaller than that. So that kind of gives you a gauge of our competitiveness and our impaction here on the admission rate and breakdown for student profiles for each college should go to our college profiles, or excuse me, student profiles, and you'll be able to see the admission rate. You'll be able to see other data points such as average GPAs of admitted students, and so that gives you kind of a gauge of how impacted Cal Poly is.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Someone asked, what is your favorite current eating spot in SLO? I mean, you could.
That's a great question. So I actually love Pokerito.
Oh,
Um, it's off Foothill, very close to campus, and has a lot of great options that you can choose from in terms of seafood and poke. But I love getting a brown rice bowl with spicy salmon that they have, and it's really tasty and it's quick, it's easy. They have a mobile app, so it's convenient for me when I have a short lunch break. So I really love Pokerito because it's just delicious, it's filling, and it's easy to just grab and go.
I agree. Yeah, great answer. There's tons of cool places and SLO to eat. I love trying out different places. I actually just went to Milestone Tavern for my friend's birthday today, and that was really good. They have like a good happy hour and a good kind of vibe in there. It kind of depends what you're looking for. Like there's some good sandwich places like High Street Deli, the Breakfast Buzz for breakfast burritos, or Giuseppe's if you want something a little fancier, or Firestone for barbecue. There's definitely a good variety. So yeah, definitely would come to SLO to check out some good eating places. What else do we have? When will people start to hear requests for further information or acceptance? So what does that kind of admissions period look like? I know you said people will be accepted by April 1st, but will it be kind of a week time span, or how will that look?
Yeah, so it just varies year to year. Historically, we have been able to provide decisions mid-March. Okay. So mid-March is kind of when we're gonna start making all the decisions, or majority of the decisions, but everyone is going to know by that April 1st timeframe of whether or not they've been admitted to Cal Poly. So we will guarantee on our end that everyone will know by April 1st, but we are very hopeful that mid-March a lot of folks will know of their decision.
Yeah. And I recommend checking your email, making sure it's not going to your spam mail, and then checking your portals for all of your schools that you've applied to, because that's where you'll get your final decision.
Yeah, great point, Olivia. It's just we are going to be communicating with you all so much about everything that you need to know, updates, changes. And so it is very important that you are at the very least, checking your email weekly, and you're checking also that junk and spam folder. Another piece, kind of circling back to after you've submitted the application, giving it about 72 hours, so about 3 business days, for you to receive a confirmation from us that yes, we've received your application, but also it's time to set up your Cal Poly portal. And so your Cal Poly portal is going to be your student portal where you're going to find out your admission decision in addition to email. You're going to have information about your financial aid award package. You're going to be able to take well, once you've been admitted, complete a housing application. So a lot of information in that student portal is really important, really key that you do set it up. If you're not receiving that email communication from us, give us a call, email us, text us. We do texting as well. That way we can resend you that communication or confirm what email we have on your application file, right? Maybe there was a typo and for whatever reason it was sent to the wrong email or was sent to your parents' email. It happens. So feel free to contact us just in case you're missing out on some communications from us.
Yeah. Someone asked, does the decision come in email or do we have to log into the portal to see? I know some colleges send congratulations emails where others have just sent that your decision has been made.
Yeah, so we will send you a congratulations email if you have been admitted to Cal Poly, and we will also notify you on your student portal. So it's kind of twofold. You will be able to take a look at that email, and then you'll be able to also confirm that information in your student portal. And in your student portal, once you receive that admission decision and you've been accepted to our university, you have the option to accept our offer of admission or decline your offer of admission, okay? So once you receive that decision by April 1st, you can accept it or decline it, and you have up until May 1st to decide whether or not you'd like to commit to Cal Poly. There is no fee to accepting our offer. So once you declare your intent, you don't have to pay us anything. You just have to click in your student portal that I accept. And then after that, you're pretty much locked in. You're going to be starting your housing application. Down the line in summer, you're going to be signing up for orientation and all of that fun stuff. I do recommend that, you know, if you're juggling universities and you're trying to decide like which university do I want to go to, which is really great that you can, you know, have many options for you. We totally understand that. We want to make sure that you accept our offer because there's no fee first, right? But you accept it by the May 1st deadline, okay? Because after that, unfortunately, you can't go back in and say you change your mind and want to accept our offer now. So you have to do it before May 1st. But once you do that, you can decide which institution after that May 1st timeline that you would like to really commit to. And we won't hold a grudge if you decide later down the line that you want to withdraw your admission. You simply have to email us, let us know in writing, okay, that you would like to withdraw, and we will go ahead and do that. So you just want to, you know, do it in a timely manner. And by that, I mean, basically before the fall term starts. But right around the end of summer is okay for us. And we will go ahead and withdraw you with no penalties. All right. So something to consider, just go ahead and accept our offer. And then while you're considering other universities potentially, you can do that. But at least you know that you have us and you've already accepted our offer.
Yeah, definitely. That'll also help people that maybe get waitlisted. So
Exactly.
as well. So it's definitely good to just stay in communication no matter what happens. We have one other question. You mentioned that reporting W's on the transcript isn't necessary. This is the person that asked the transcript question. But if we do report them on the application for 100% accuracy, will that be a negative factor in our admissions decision?
No, it will not. So withdrawals do not go against, you know, your GPA. It's simply just a course that you enrolled in or you registered for, and then you withdrew within the withdrawal period, right? And so if we see a ton of W's on a transcript or a ton of W's on your application, that's not going to penalize you, okay? As a transfer student, we are just looking for the coursework that you completed, okay, and that you received letter grades in. But a withdrawal is not going to be one of those courses that we count against you, and it doesn't benefit you either, all right? But you do want to definitely report, you know, if you did not pass a course and that you received a D or an F, you do want to report those grades. But if you withdrew and you want to put that in the application, although not required, you can go ahead and do that. But it's not going to have a detriment or be a negative impact in your application.
Awesome, thank you. How do scholarships work and how are they given out?
Great question. So Cal Poly has over 100 different scholarships that are available to our admitted students. And so once you have been admitted, okay, Cal Poly is going to take your entire application and you are automatically going to be eligible for our merit-based scholarships, okay, and our academic-based scholarships. So merit-based is going to be depending on how well you did in high school or community college or at the other university you were at. Academic based is going to be based on which major you have been admitted to or what college you're going to be in. Okay, so those two scholarship opportunities. Again, there's over 100 different scholarships that are out there, but those two different types of scholarships are available to you. No application is necessary. We also have need-based scholarships that are available. Okay, so based on your financial need, you will be eligible for scholarships. Okay, but you do have to complete either the FOSFA or the California Dream Act application to be considered for those need-based scholarships. Now, again, no application is going to be necessary. You'll automatically be considered based on your Cal State Apply application once you have been submitted, or excuse me, once you have submitted that. Financial aid office is going to determine your eligibility for all of those 100 or more scholarships, and you're going to be able to see all of that information in your financial aid award package on your student portal. And from there, it's going to have essentially a list of all of the aid that's available to you. And you can see all that before you decide to commit to Cal Poly, which is really great. So yeah, great question.
Yeah, and I definitely recommend, even if you don't think that you're eligible, it's worth it to just apply just in case. And I also know that my school, through kind of my counseling office, they offered specific scholarships that could help you sort of outside no matter what school you end up going to. So definitely worth it to look, because a lot of times people don't end up applying for them. Or like you said, an application isn't even necessary. So
yeah, and great point, Olivia. So, Cal Poly will consider you for those scholarships without an application, but they're going to be our Cal Poly scholarships. So those are ours. We'll offer them to you without that application needed. But there are, of course, those outside scholarships that you can apply for, submit your essays or anything like that, or any supplemental information. And then also add that to your financial aid award package that we have already offered you as well.
Yeah. So it looks like we don't have any more questions. So do you have any last minute advice for applicants, or kind of, general future knowledge you can provide?
Yeah, most definitely. So, for applicants that are out there that have yet to submit the application, first piece of advice is just to be sure to submit that by the November 30th timeframe. Again, so the application is going to close 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow. Also going to recommend, if you have the opportunity to have your counselors take a look at that application, to have your parents or supporters take a look at that application before you submit, please feel free to do so. Another piece of it that I don't think we got to mention during this session, but I'm going to throw it out there now, is application changes. So for those of you that have already submitted your application, but maybe you put your brother's birth date instead of yours, or maybe you put the wrong social security number, you mixed up the numbers. We will accept biographical application changes, and that is going to be through our application change form that you can find online. So there's very few changes that can be made after the application has been submitted, but biographical information changes is one of them. Okay. We will also make updates to your major. So let's say you applied to your primary major and your alternate major, and your primary major was civil engineering. I'll just throw that out there. And now after you submitted the application, you decide, I actually want to go into architectural engineering instead. Okay. You can go ahead and submit that application change form, and you can update us with that information that you would like to be considered for architectural engineering. So you will need to do that by January 15th if you are applying to the music, program or art and design, okay, and are a first-time freshman applicant. All other majors, you need to submit it by the January 31st application timeframe. So it's important that you submit those particular changes before those deadlines. Again, very few changes that we do make, but we do make some. So if you need to, just call us, email us to let us know what changes you actually do have, and we'll let you know if you can go ahead and submit that change form.
Awesome. I didn't even know that. So that is great information. We do have another question that I think is a good one to answer. So do you have an insight as to how much more competitive this year's application process will be? Since last year, I think it was a record number of applicants.
Yeah, no, I do not have additional information of how competitive this admission cycle is going to be. And that is only because we're still getting applications in, right? Also because every single year the applicant pool is going to vary. And I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but students that are applying really set the tone for the competitiveness of the selection, all right? So we don't have that information just yet. And we will be able to provide that information towards the end of summer next year. But again, after selections have been made. But to kind of address the question, we don't have a gauge on how competitive this application cycle will be.
Right. I think these things can fluctuate, and, you know, COVID might have contributed to things, or being test blind, you know, perhaps people were more likely to apply because they didn't have to submit test scores. So it's always going to be a competitive school. I think that's not going to change. But like you said, I think the specific numbers you can't determine, but those will change every year.
Yeah.
So in terms of, you know, advice from me, I obviously am a little bit biased, but I would recommend that you apply to Cal Poly if you're even considering coming here. I know that I never regretted applying to a school, because it's always good to have it as a potential option, or to know that, you know, even if you don't get accepted, then you don't have to regret not applying to it. And I would say, now that you're kind of, these next few weeks, you'll be finishing up all of your application submissions. Enjoy your time as, you know, seniors or in your community college, and try not to stress out, because at this point, you know, you've done everything that you can do. So, you know, just be ready with your kind of, keep checking on communication and make sure you don't slack on your grades too much. But yeah, it's awesome that any of you are even considering applying to Cal Poly or to higher education in general. So I'm so glad that any of you joined us today. And this video will be posted on the Cal Poly admissions page. So on the Instagram TV section, if you want to reference anything that we talked about, or if you didn't get to watch the whole thing, you can kind of skip back to it. It'll also be on our admissions YouTube page, which has a ton of other videos that me or some other poly reps have done in the past that give you kind of insight to different aspects of Cal Poly. But thank you so much for joining me today, Javon. You have had some incredible answers, and I'm sure have been very helpful.
Thank you so much, Olivia. And thank you to everyone that has joined us today. I'm really excited for every applicant that is applying to Cal Poly. This is a really exciting time.
Yeah, me too. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.
Hey there, my name's Rafael. I'm a fourth-year journalism transfer student with a minor in Spanish, and my pronouns are he, him, his. Thank you for watching the video. Please share any questions or comments you have down below in the comments section. Click here to subscribe, and to watch more videos, click here. If you want to sign up for a campus visit, we're offering in-person and virtual options, so check out our website. Link in the description. Thank you for watching.